My guest today is Amielle Lake. She is the founder and chief marketing officer at Tagga. She is a published author. She has been nominated for the prestigious Women of Distinction, as well as named to the Business in Vancouver's Top Under 40. Now, you and I did our undergrads at UBC together.
We did, yes. We also met in a special club.
We sure did, yeah. Sorority, for those that don't know.
Is that live?
Yeah, it's live.
Okay.
And it's all good. I learned a lot from all the experiences.
Yes.
And then we've done okay since then.
Yeah, we have.
Especially, we're here to talk about you today. So kind of back us up. So we went to UBC together, we did our BAs, you went on, tell us what you did, and eventually bring us to founding Tagga.
Sure. So I guess one sort of sidebar is that I've always wanted to start a business.
You have,
and
okay.
In university, I had businesses such as a catering company, and I was trying to start a software company. And all of that sort of, that experience of trying to make a business as in make money.
Yes.
You know, always that interesting little thing you
There's
need to
part,
do,
there is
you
that
know,
part
make
of
it a profit game, is I ended up going to do an MBA. And I did an MBA in France. I completed it when I was 22 and was just very lucky in that the topic I wanted to focus on. So I went over to do my MBA in France, and the one thing I wanted to figure out was how investors put money into companies and to really understand that whole world and quite literally that game. And so as a thesis concentration, I elected to study investment decision making in corporate cultures, and I applied. I wanted to do it in a firm so I could, you know, sort of secretly build network with investors and obviously also execute on the study. And I applied to literally every firm, finance firm, bank, private equity, boutique investment or private equity, in Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, Seattle. And finally, one company said they would allow me to come in and run this study, which involved interviewing bankers and brokers and all kinds of stock market professionals and talk to them about corporate culture. And that company was Haywood Securities. I started the study. I was really trying to understand how information got exchanged between investment decision makers, because that ultimately affects what happens in the end. The whole thesis was that finance actually has nothing to do with numbers and everything to do with relationships. And anyways, this is a bit of a long roundabout story. You want to hear the whole thing?
I do. I want to hear the whole thing because there's, I find it fascinating. Carry on.
Okay. And the company ended up getting so interested in the work I was doing because the types of questions I was asking was, you know, when do you feel comfortable sharing information about a deal you're working on, or when are deals really successful, and what happens when you fail, and really sort of taking this very human approach. And so they ended up sponsoring me to interview all the bankers and brokers in their Calgary office and their Toronto office, and I think I was the most spoiled graduate doing that program. And it also turned out it was a great way to be interviewed because they offered me a job as the vice president of marketing, which was interesting in itself. So
awesome.
I completed the study. Thesis was published. We were published in one of the academic journals, in an international academic journal. And then at 22, I accepted this role as vice president of marketing for Haywood Securities.
Oh my God.
So that was interesting. I had no idea what I was doing at all. I treaded water for about 2 years. I learned about things that you would never learn in school, such as politics, and developing buy-in, and just really learning how to be politically savvy within an organization. And you know, the 2 years I was there, I didn't master it. I just sort of learned by kind of touching the hot element over and over and sort of learning the hard way. But then from there, I ended up going into software and then mining, hilariously, but I had connections. always in the role of marketing and finance, and so I use that as a way to start Tagga.
Yeah.
So
I see
a question, Brady.
No, I mean, I just think the story is incredible. It makes me want to ask like a million things. First and foremost, it makes me want to ask, what was it like being your age in those roles? Because I'm just curious what your experience was.
It was really interesting. You know, I was so young for the role, but I was also particularly young for the company. This was a company, there was 200 people already, or 220 people.
Okay.
A lot of very, very experienced women, but they were in roles on the administrative side or on the executive support side. So there wasn't really a sort of classic executive role, even though they're much more senior than I was. So that was interesting. The firm itself never had anyone run marketing for them.
Okay.
So that was interesting in terms of you've got two really hard dynamics that if you're not smart at building buy-in and promoting yourself, it's very hard to get things done in the organization. So it was a very, I keep kind of going back to interesting. I want to give you more detail on that.
Well, no, I just think from my own experience in business, I remember when I was working in the corporate arena, and it was in a performance role. So, in the beginning it was a little bit like, okay, who's this young chick? But there was also some other young chicks and some young dudes, and so, but at the end of the day it was like, you either killed it and built it or you didn't. Yeah. And if you did, then you kind of got shuffled along, and it wasn't too long before, when I left the corporate arena and went onto the entrepreneurship journey, that was a whole another experience. Yeah. What I learned was that as soon as I let go of my own insecurities about my age and feeling like I was too young, and started just saying like, listen, I actually don't know, but I can figure it out or whatever, and you talk about buy-in, and I'm just curious about your experience, because for me, I learned tell the truth the hard way. Yep. Because at first I was kind of like doing a dance and pretending I knew stuff I didn't know, and that did not work because people could see right through you. Yep. And so just tell the truth, be vulnerable. Yep. And ask for help, and it was amazing because people actually really rallied around me in both arenas. But I had to get over myself first. That was my experience. So I'm just curious, you
raised a very good point. I remember going in, and at the time there was these hilarious, I think, FedEx commercials about MBAs who couldn't photocopy. And I have to say, I was kind of like that. I had my head, are we allowed to swear? Yes. I had my head firmly wedged up my ass, and thought I was very smart and knew everything.
Well, you are very smart.
So,
that's part of it.
But I wasn't politically savvy, and I think that's a really important intelligence that anyone needs to be successful in the business arena. And so certainly I was riddled with insecurities, just like any 22-year-old was. But, I'd sort of go in and try and get things done. And I was always stepping on people's toes and pissing everybody off. And it was...
But nobody would... How did you find out? How did you know you were pissing people off? Like, was it just intuitive, or did you find out later?
Oh, no, it wasn't intuitive. I wish it was. Like I said, my head, I was like, oh, geez, sorry, I know I should have emailed you, but when I get focused on something, I just sort of beeline. And, in those early days, I wasn't very good at being very collaborative. And I learned that that's obviously very important. One, because, well, the most important thing is you make the project better, right? True. So, it's all about, you don't ever want to be the best in your team. You want the team to be the best they can be.
Which is really hard for...
Yeah, and I didn't know that.
No,
I didn't understand
definitely
that at
not.
all.
No.
So, and they told me, there was no one really...
Nobody beat around the bush?
Yeah, no, I got in trouble a lot of times. So that was hard. And then, of course, that grates on your insecurities of being young in the workplace. But, it's... like everything, I got a lot of good advice. I did my best to listen to it, and kind of matured in that experience. Yeah. So
I just think it's cool because I talk to a lot of young women that are in the corporate arena, and about how to navigate the journey.
It is.
And I think what you're talking about in terms of political savviness, and even if you don't have the intuitive skills to know something, to seek out some guidance.
Yeah.
And perhaps even get a mentor internally.
Those tools, getting a mentor, asking for help, that you pointed that out, that is such an important thing to do. Whether you think you need it or not, you definitely do.
Yeah.
And it really helps to build a collaborative atmosphere.
Totally. It's scary at first because I don't know about you, but for me, coming out of university and then getting thrust into this thing, for me, asking for help meant I'm not capable of doing the job.
Yeah,
and so there's this sort of, it's a bit kind of weird at first then to say like I need help and ask for help. And what ends up happening from my experience is you kind of pull back your kimono, you're vulnerable, you're like, dude, I need help. You find somebody.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know what I'm doing. Please help me. And that creates this bond of relationship, right? And that's, and being on the other side of it a lot of the times now when people asking me and probably asking you, nothing you would want to do more than to help somebody.
Yeah.
Like absolutely nothing. The person you don't want to help is the kind of the jackass, right? But that's how we learn.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's the contrast, the experience of contrast. Okay, so take us from there. And I didn't realize that, I knew about the catering stuff, but I didn't realize that you had always had this passion for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, my father is an entrepreneur. On my mother's side, my grandmother, my great aunt, they were all entrepreneurs as well. So I think somehow it was in our DNA, or, if you met my father, you'd probably say the apple really, it doesn't fall far from the tree, and in our case, it probably just kind of
straight down.
Just straight down.
Still attached.
Still attached, yeah. So I was always very inspired by him. When I was a kid, I was always trying to organize various little initiatives, recycling clubs, I don't know. So I knew in university that, I tried to go down the more conventional route, looked at law school and med school. Of course, I failed out of pre-med, right?
I didn't even bother.
Yeah, I tried to argue my way back into passing.
That would have been the lawyer.
Yeah, or the entrepreneur. I don't hear no. But anyways, I knew that inside me there was obviously this deep desire to be an entrepreneur, and so I had the catering business. I tried to launch a software business, and then then went into the work world for a bit. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was working for this mining company and they got acquired that I realized it was time. I was 26, and my book was just coming out around the same time, and I very serendipitously found some money and founded Tagga. So, I spent, I guess, from 22 to 26, which really isn't that long, but I'd been working with my father while I was in school prior to that, so I guess I had some exposure, and then some really intense corporate exposure, being such a child in an adult company. And anyways, I was ready to do it. I really wanted to do it, so I just did it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You serendipitously found some money.
Yes. Go on. No, it was crazy. It was 2008, so it was right before the crash.
Okay.
And this investor who had invested in my father's company, my dad simply made an introduction email because I'd said, I'm really interested in mobile marketing because I grew up business-wise in finance, for the most part working at Haywood Securities and then in investor relation type of companies where everyone was very obsessed with their BlackBerries. Yes. And so for me, it just seemed like if you wanted to be successful in marketing, you had to figure out how to reach people, on the device, which, isn't really a BlackBerry right now. It's more an iPhone and an Android, but that's a whole other thing. And
God bless the BlackBerry.
Yeah. No, they were amazing devices. I was the first of my friends to have a BlackBerry because I was early in the finance world, but we were just totally obsessed with them. Yeah. And so this guy mentioned he was interested in mobile. My dad made an email introduction and sent him a business plan, met with him, flew to Dubai, and closed the first round of investment.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was pretty exciting.
I love how you just glaze over, sent in the business plan, no big deal. Talk about the business plan. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. I have to admit, I didn't know what I was doing again.
That's fine. I like that.
So, yeah. So, there's this idea that, and it turned out to be the wrong idea.
Okay.
So, Tagga is a story about, we're like a classic startup. We've pivoted, we've survived, we've now started to grow very, very quickly, so it's really exciting, but we've been through all the pitfalls and exciting parts of being a startup so far.
Yeah.
So anyways, the first business plan was to build almost like a Google AdWords for SMS marketing. Okay. And we launched before the iPhone came out, right? So web browsing was hadn't really taken off yet. Certainly mobile had been on minds of people who were in marketing prior to myself, of course. And our idea was that you'd go to a website, like you, me, anybody, and you'd build these sort of text groups. So my book club or my sports team, and I could notify everybody at once about a practice, an event, what have you, anything, right? Yeah. And so it's sort of this user-generated content platform by SMS. And then advertisers like Gatorade or Barnes & Nobles would sponsor these initiatives. And we built up so much advertising inventory that we were just sort of a percentage of the transaction, right? Just like building up an advertising network. What we realized is that $500,000, we realized a bunch of things. It really was because I'd hired a bit of a team and I was getting a lot of help, advisors to come on board, all that sort of stuff. And we'd realized that $500,000 is nowhere near enough money to try and build such an initiative. Okay. That we were way too early. And the reason we knew we were too early is that when we went to the people that really control advertising dollars, and that's the brand managers, but the easier buying is the media planner within the agency, because they're allocated budget for the brands.
They're used to spending money.
Yeah, exactly. So Gatorade's media planner would come and they'd look at this inventory and figure out if they wanted to buy. And they had no idea what we were talking about. Oh. And
that being the indicator that you were early.
Yeah. So, obviously I see other flaws in the business concept, but, those are pretty important sort of, we didn't have enough money to really build this, and the customer didn't really understand it. So, two minor signs. But what was really interesting is when we went to the media planner and we showed them this whole web application where you could literally build these text message groups online, they really loved the ease of use as a starting point. And so they said, that's interesting. Do you think we could use that to build, at the time, just basic text message campaigns? So Gatorade wants to run and I keep using Gatorade. They're not a client for the record, but just as an example.
Just an example. Yeah, it's all good.
We'd like to use this to set up for running a radio ad that we could set up a contest very quickly without having to go through, building the technology, talking to carriers, going through that whole very complicated and very annoying initiative for something that we're just trying. Right, yeah. And we said, that's great. We'll do that. We're going to build an agency platform. And so we took our technology, we ditched the whole ad network concept, and we're going to build a software tool that allowed advertising agencies to build mobile marketing campaigns, right? So they could build contesting campaigns and deliver coupons. And we started to build out capabilities in the platform. Yep. You could build websites and all this stuff. Yeah. And then we learned that actually the agency wasn't the right customer. Oh. So, and we also did launch in a recession, which made fundraising painful.
Yeah, fair enough.
That actually is kind of an understatement. But anyways, we got it done. And so we're on this new business plan of targeting agencies, and we did that for about a year.
Yeah.
And sales would come in, and they were happy, but we realized that the agency, and I think, if you don't go through this as a business, you're extremely lucky. But we certainly went through this, but we realized that the agency wasn't our customer. They were a channel to our customer, which was the brand. So we changed our business. We pivoted again.
Yeah.
And I can talk more. I'm sure you've got questions, but we pivoted again we've evolved the technology, and we've started to go direct to brands. That was the last year and a half. And they are the right customer. The agency continues to be a great channel.
Yeah.
That we work with them on client-by-client initiatives.
Okay.
But the brand is the one buying our software.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I guess just one small kind of end piece to that is, so the brand buys our software because what we've ended up building is something we term a campaign management platform. It's cloud-based, and it's really engineered so that marketers can add mobile and social media technologies, whether that's text messaging, Twitter, Pinterest, all that sort of stuff, into any marketing campaign they're doing. So our best clients use our platform on every single initiative in the marketing calendar. And so they use mobile and social, and it's a tool for them to better measure and optimize their marketing efforts across the entire media mix. So that's the platform we've come to today.
Yeah.
But 4.5 years ago, we looked quite different. So we've all, the company matured, and again, I hopefully matured a bit through the process.
So incredible, and for you so right now you've got like this one-stop shop.
Yeah.
That really streamlines the process, and you talk about being able to optimize and then being able to measure.
Correct.
Which are like the two main things that everybody's trying to figure out how to do.
Yeah.
Especially when it involves social media and this guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we really believe at Tagga that the real opportunity in social media marketing and mobile marketing is that they enable better marketing. So rather than thinking about mobile as a standalone channel and believing that apps will be the way, the marketing future, or that Twitter or Facebook page is going to be, the future of marketing, or the marketing future. We believe that those two technologies are ways to enable more integrated marketing across digital and traditional, and really helping to bridge the gap.
The whole experience.
Exactly.
It's not like single channels and...
Yeah, to enable cross-channel marketing, that's the term, or one that's becoming a fancier term, but it means the same thing as the omni-channel.
Omni-channel.
And that's where marketers who for the last several years have been marketing on digital and marketing in traditional, and they've really been silos, right? As you said, but the consumer, thanks to this device, because it's enabled two really crazy things as a consumer, is one, we have all the power, right? In that we can access information about anything, anywhere, whether we want coupons, whether we want to look up products, whether we want to ask our friends what they're doing, and we can share information with anyone, anywhere we are. And that's completely transformed our buying behavior as consumers. And when we interact with a brand, we're interacting with them through multiple channels. And so a marketer really has to figure out, they can no longer market in silos. Their digital and their traditional really need to become an integrated form where you can interact with them literally wherever you are. And the mobile device and leveraging social media as part of that is, we believe is the way to do that. That you can engage with a commercial sitting on your couch. You can go to a brand's Facebook page that you like, but you can do something more than just fan it. You could enter your phone number and get a coupon. You could be in store and you could enter a contest just in the same way as you could be at a bus stop, right? So you can literally use this device as your remote control to connect with a brand wherever you are. And that's Tagga's whole thesis. We've built all our technology around that, our service offering, and we believe that's where marketing is going to go, and the real opportunity in mobile and social.
And you've made it so easy and accessible for the big guys to use your technology to basically plug and play. This is what they've got to want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't want to do that, something's wrong.
Yeah, we like to say so. No, that's not true.
Because, like, it's exactly what you're saying. Yeah, you're watching TV, you watch a commercial, and it says, yeah, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and you go there, and exactly what you're talking about. You're at the bus stop, you're scanning a QR code. Exactly, and then you're going there, and then you're here, and now that's the whole concept. And this guy, and others, Androids and still Blackberries, are making it, like you call it, the remote control. It's so true, it's so powerful. And you guys have this magic sweet spot. But if you'd stuck to, like, if you'd hung on so tight to your first business model.
Yeah. Where do you think? I don't know where it would be. I often think about that because I do like, to me the concept still makes sense, but there are some pretty big challenges. Whenever you're trying to build an advertising network, you need a lot of content and you need advertisers to buy inventory.
Yeah.
We started in SMS. I doubt we would have stayed in SMS so along that theme anyways. But I really believe that what we're doing now is much more powerful, much bigger of an opportunity. And, we're seeing great results. Yeah. So Dole Foods uses us in every single marketing initiative they do in the US and Canada. And that's incredible. Yeah. We work with Red Bull. We just signed Sunwing. We've just put out press on Paramount Pictures, the NBA, Adidas, Lindt Chocolates. And when you talk to these people, whether it's the director of marketing or the director of digital or even the CMO or hell, the CEO of these brands, it's so wonderful and gratifying and rewarding to hear that they really believe we're making a huge difference in how they market, and we're giving them data that allows them to make their marketing more efficient. And we're also giving them incredible results on their ability to connect with a consumer and influence their purchase decisions. So, I really believe the track we're on, just based on that third-party feedback, is really exciting. So we're all pretty jazzed.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's incredible.
I don't think too much about the old business model.
Where I was going with that more was the idea that in entrepreneurship there has to be somewhat of an openness and somewhat of an ability to let go, step into the scary unknown. Take in your backpack all that you can fit. Basically what you've learned along the way. You have to have that trust within self, to make good decisions, or sometimes we make bad decisions, but at least if it comes from that place. Yep. It's just more about, you talk about pivoting and the openness, and I think, that is the thing, that's the thing people need to hear. Yeah. Because sometimes we get really attached to our ideas, and they are good ones. It's not that the idea is not great.
But sometimes they can be bad ideas.
Sometimes they can be bad ideas.
We
sometimes
definitely
they
have
can be
them,
great ideas at the wrong time. Yeah. Sometimes you can be targeting the wrong audience, right? And again, like being able to let the feedback come in, be open to the feedback, and be open to changing the feedback, and know that that's not a personal judgment on you. If you're the founder, or even if you're the only person that's in the company, that's running the company, if there's a fluidity to things, especially in your energy and your attitude, you can get here, and this is pretty exciting.
It is, and I don't think, you meet a lot of people, obviously, in whatever industry you operate in, and I don't think you can be successful, and I wouldn't put myself as successful yet, without having a real ability to address failure and transform, and use it as a learning experience, right? That, failure isn't sort of this thing that happened to you. It was part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you sort of continue on with whatever you've learned and can move forward with. So.
Okay. So what is successful to you then? What measure are you holding out there?
That all my employees retire off the Tagga. Maybe I want to see everyone around me succeed, and that's not a line that's very true. So for me, success will be when I can look around and see that everyone around me has, significantly financially transformed themselves through their efforts at Tagga. And I focus on the employees because they're the ones that make it happen. But certainly, if you make the employees successful, then the investors, who you have a duty to, your shareholders, to make them successful. So, yeah, that's my measure of success, is that they become very successful as a result.
I love that you said, of course, yes, you have shareholders that you need to take care of, but I love that you talked about your employees. Because sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, at the end of the day, it's really about shareholder value. And to your point, the path to shareholder value is in delivering the results.
Correct.
And the people that are going to work every day and grinding it out. And I think people know that intellectually, but sometimes can forget when it comes down to you know, delivering quarterly reports.
Absolutely.
I love that you have a focus and like your heart's there with your people.
Yeah.
Now, you've recently stepped aside as CEO.
Yes.
And you brought a gentleman on board.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. Why'd you do it? Was it hard for you to do it? Was it easy for you to do it? What's the plan?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So we brought in Jean-Guy Faubert as the CEO. He's had a very successful career, mostly in Vancouver, but he's lived in New York and out east in Canada. And he's had 3 successful exits under his belt prior to Tagga, but he was always number 2. And so for him, this is a great leap to be a role that I think he should have had years ago as CEO. But he recently sold a company to Dell. He sold another company to OpenText and IBM. So he has some...
Not his first barbecue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not his first barbecue. I always say rodeo. But,
oh yeah, that works too. Not his first rodeo.
So it's wonderful to have that experience. He's also a real sales driver.
Okay.
He's taken companies from 0 to tens, 20, tens or tens of millions. I was going to say 20 million plus, but that would be tens of millions. You know, just on single accounts or just growing the business. So he's a very good fit for Tagga, where we're at today.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to have him on board. You asked about the experience of bringing him on, and I
just think it's interesting. You don't always talk to a founder CEO who steps into the CMO role and brings somebody on board. To act in the leadership capacity. I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, it's so at first, obviously, I was very nervous. You know, sort of giving my baby to someone. It's almost like, but I don't see Tagga as like a teenager or an adult yet. So I really was handing over my baby. So I was nervous about that. And we did all these interviews, and I realized that the most important thing, besides obviously they needed a certain skill set and you know, a certain level of experience, but everyone we interviewed looked great on paper. And some, quite frankly, looked better on paper than the one we ended up with. But Jean-Guy was a really good person. And that was the most important thing, is that you could bring in somebody who had a good heart, who he also espoused qualities of the type of CEO you need. So he was extremely passionate. He's not a process guy, he's a business builder.
Okay.
And very energetic and very fair. And so it was really about who he was that made the transition and the selection, you know, the transition smooth, and that, you know, understanding that that was the most important piece. So valuable. And I would recommend that anyone who's thinking of doing it, that they really focus on the personality of the individual, because since coming in, he's had, you know, there's more energy in the company, which is great. We have 100% of our employees writing checks and putting money into a financing round that we're doing.
Wow.
So talk about commitment. The person who makes, you know, $40,000 a year is writing a check. So this goes beyond options. So, you know, that's fantastic.
Wow.
And Jean-Guy is supporting the company, and people who've worked with him or funded him are supporting the company. So it's, you know, that it's been a really good experience for me. And he brings a lot of skills to the table that I don't have. Or
like what?
hope
Like
to
what?
have.
Like what? Like what? Tell me what he's like.
He's
what role is he filling that you?
Yeah, he's got stronger leadership skills.
Okay, all right.
And look, like I think I'll be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life.
Yep.
So this is a really great opportunity for me to learn more and to hone my management skills. And I don't want to get into a debate about management versus leadership.
No,
but,
no, and we don't need to do that.
But both of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he really does have some great experience in, how to take an account, like a relationship with a client, and really blow the doors off.
Yeah.
So, we're doing 6-figure deals, but I got to admit, that's not really all that exciting. I want to see us do multi-million-dollar deals, right? And he really understands the path to doing that. And so those are really great additions to the team.
It's refreshing just to hear you be what I hear you saying is I'm excited to learn more, and I want to grow my business, and I have a vision for where I want this thing to go, and I saw this being the next step to take.
Oh,
and I
for
took
sure.
it.
Yeah,
Talk about the direct opposite from what you mentioned earlier about perhaps entering the corporate arena with your head up your I won't. You can't have your head up your ass and hire somebody to run your company. Those two things just don't coexist. You can't.
Yeah.
That's just an incredible perspective and attitude and desire to have to then put somebody.
So my party line is I'm a lot greedier than I have pride. And, quite frankly, I got Tagga to a place, but I was really running up against some challenges that were going to affect the health of the company. Just on figuring out how to scale sales was a real challenge. Hiring the right salespeople. For me, that was something I had no experience with, and it's very hard to do right. And just getting, new investment into the company so that we could continue to grow at the pace that, we want to grow at.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get around those. And so it's great to have somebody who can, and who's literally in 7 weeks moving us around those obstacles. And like I said, I'm greedier than I have pride, so I'm all for it.
Awesome, I love it. Okay, we've got a couple questions in the field.
Sure.
Sue says, kudos, I wish I could afford you. She's in
demand.
You probably can, is that what you said?
I like doing what I'm interested in, but I'm in love with Tagga, so.
Yes, okay. So
I'm a taken woman in that respect.
This is an interesting question, actually. What did your investors think when you kept pivoting? Did they trust you? I have a feeling your relationship building skills probably had something to do with that.
It wasn't easy. You have to build buy-in.
Yeah.
And look, your job as the CEO is to inspire. And people come to work for you because they're dreamers, not because they're looking for process and salary. And they're coming because they believe in what you're doing. And investors, that's even more so the case because you're talking about the future. There is no argument. It's all an argument. It's all a story. But there's not enough fact-based information to guarantee success. And so every time we pivoted and we had to go out and raise money, I really believed in it, and so I think that certainly helped. And I suppose, I was good at articulating why this made sense and why they should continue to believe. And I also brought in new investors at each level to help support and drive the company forward. So, it's sort of a two-prong approach, I guess.
Well, you know a little bit about the Money Men, as we'll call them.
The Money Men,
You kind of wrote a book on it.
I did.
Actually.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, and talk about it as well in the context of how did that sort of bring you to the position where you're comfortable going into that room, having that conversation, you know what they're looking for, what they're not looking for, what they don't care about, what to say, what not to say, because you actually wrote the book on it.
I did. So the book was a crazy experience, because you're sort of we talked to some extremely powerful people. This one story, I emptied my bank account because I was 24 and I'd started writing the book. I had no money. To fly to London for less than 24 hours because I had emailed Forbes magazine. I'd read this story called The Desert Rose. And it was about this woman who managed billions of dollars in private equity, but couldn't vote or drive because she was from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia.
Oh, wow.
And I emailed the writer at Forbes magazine, and I said I was writing a book, and he gave me her contact information. I know. It's ridiculous.
Amazing what happens sometimes when you ask.
Just when you try, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where it's going. And so then I asked to meet with her, and I made up some lie that I'm often in London, and flew to London, met with her, and interviewed her. And, you know, in talking to people like that, you realize that they're people, and you can never really be afraid to ask. And so, you know, I've got no issues about asking for money. And I think if you want to raise money, that's got to be, you need that.
Yes.
How you do it, how you approach it, there's certainly an art to it, I find. Like, you really need the pitch to be completely crafted. The ask has to be well thought out. You have to be within, you know, certain accepted norms when you go through that. But at the end of the day, you just can't be afraid to ask. And, you know, the money men, their job is to invest. They, you know, it's sort of this symbiotic system, if you will, in that, you know, investors exist because of companies, and companies exist because of investors. No one owes, you know, we owe each other the same thing, you know.
What's a synergistic exchange?
And so
one can't exist without
investors
the other,
are there for us to ask for money to grow companies so that they can get a return and do it all over again. And so, you know, their job is to be asked for money and then to make a decision on whether they want to give it or not. But yeah, so it's all about
and so you must have heard no.
Oh yes, yeah.
Along the way. And for those people that are watching that are now feeling like, okay, I just have to ask, talk a little bit about hearing no and how to navigate that.
So, you know, whether you raise money or not as an entrepreneur, you're going to hear no a lot. And I think I have some weird genetic predisposition where I don't hear no. Like,
it just doesn't register.
You know, I sort of no, and I'm like, right. Anyways, so back to where we were.
Let's just run through these numbers one more time.
So, yeah, you know, you hear no a lot. You hopefully when you hear no, you try and figure out why you heard no, and you really have to be objective in your analysis so you can kind of take that no, that feedback, right, or that point of failure, if you will, and use it to be better at the next ask. And you also just can't let it phase you. You know, building a business is hard. Raising money is hard. You know, when you're extremely successful and you don't need their money, that's when they want you most. You know, it's like everything in life. When you don't want something, you know,
when you no longer need it, they're knocking at your door.
Exactly. And so you have to really figure out how to, if you're not in that position, you've got to get it done no matter what. And so you just got to keep moving forward and press on. So
keep acting.
Yeah. And questions like, why am I doing this? You can't ask those. You just really have to stay focused on the goal and what can I learn from this? That's really the more important piece.
I totally resonate with the idea that action and like fear, disappointment, loathing, unhappiness, whatever, they can't coexist.
Yeah.
If you can keep moving.
Yeah.
But what happens? So you're in there, you pitch, you hear no, the elevator doors close. Like, do you give yourself a moment to be upset about it, or do you just blaze on?
You know, earlier I used to get upset, you know, because I wasn't used to it as much.
Of course.
I don't get upset anymore. It's
just is
life,
what it is.
Whatever.
It's partly experience. Like once you've experienced no, and then a yes, and then 2 no's, and 3 yeses, they start to.
There's always a way. You know, I really believe that. And look, I understand businesses fail all the time, but it just seems like there's always a way to get around it. And so I've got optimism, and I firmly believe in what I do. So when I hear no now, I sort of think, okay, you know, there was good feedback on the pitch, what we should have worked on, and move on. There's, you know, there's nothing you can do about it, there is something you can do about it. You can take the positive and move on, but that's it, right? You just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And there are downs,
of course,
but you keep moving.
Yeah. So for you as a person, how do you keep yourself grounded? Excited to do it every day, and I mean, let's be honest, you're not excited to do it every day, are you?
No, there are days when I'm not excited.
Yeah, I always kind of wonder when someone's like, I love doing this every day. I'm like, every day?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Are you Louise Hay?
Yeah.
I love this. Yeah, okay. So how do you keep yourself, I know you swim, I know you're exercise, I know you're into the culinary, you've got outside passions.
Yeah,
Talk a little bit about how that well-roundedness supports you in being here and doing your best at this every day.
Sure. So, yeah, I definitely would say I'm still pretty lopsided with a heavy work obsession. But, you know, we spend so much time doing it, so I'm happy doing it.
Yeah.
But, no, it's true. You don't leap out of bed every day thinking, yes, like I want to, you know, sometimes you leap out of bed and then you kind of just want to go back to bed. Or you want to go to a beach and, you know, not think about anything at all. Yeah. But those aren't options, so just shuffle those away. And things I do to keep myself grounded, you know, I have a really good network of friends and family. You know, in success, in measures of success and wealth, I've knocked it out of the park in that area. I've done really well. I'm really fortunate. So I have that. It's a great network of support. I love to cook. The culinary arts for me is a huge passion point. So I love having people over for dinner and spending time with them. I love being active, being outside, which is sometimes really frustrating when, you know, your best use of your time is in front of a computer. Sometimes my happiest moments are outside. And so being active is really important. Exercising regularly is critical. And, you know, you just sort of do your best. You try and, the more I do this, the better I get at making decisions on priorities. And, you know, sort of, obviously Tagga is always going to be a priority, but sometimes I need to make life decisions so that Tagga can be a priority.
Gotcha.
And so, you know, I'm getting more experienced at understanding how to do that and when to do that. And, you know, all in all, I lead a pretty good life. So a lot of exercise, a lot of cooking.
A lot of exercise,
fun.
A lot of cooking.
A lot of friends and
family.
A lot of work,
a lot of friends and family. I mean, the social network is such a crucial point.
It is.
I think, especially for entrepreneurs, that, I mean, let's face it, you may go through times when you are working.
Yeah.
And that's not even limited to entrepreneurship.
That's anyone.
That's anybody.
Yeah.
And you know, I love a gal I recently interviewed, and she's a good friend that I think the world of, Amielle Lake, and she says balance is bullshit. You know, that's a myth.
I don't even know what that is.
And I love where she's coming from, and I think, you know, there's other people that speak about balance, and they're actually coming from the same place, which is like, how do you make sure that you're feeling the best that you can, that you're paying attention to signals that your body is sending you, like you just said, about making life decisions so that Tagga can continue to be a priority for you. And that might mean, like, if you're physically ill or something, like that might mean making a decision about taking a day at home, or taking a vacation that you hadn't planned because you just need a couple of days, or spending some time in nature because you've got a big decision to make and it's not crystallizing for you. So you lean into that side of your life, and then all of a sudden the decision comes to you. You know, and I think for entrepreneurs to hear that is so important, because it's so easy for us to just, oh, but I can't leave it for you know, because what if, and hearing people like yourself say that, that I sometimes have to do that.
Yeah, you know, I think a really important skill, and this is a skill, that, you know, as an entrepreneur, I think you're addicted to chaos. At least I certainly am, you know, and I try and contain that just in my work life. I really do, but. And so, you know, that's okay to be addicted to chaos, because change is constant, and sometimes things are, you know, there's lots of highs and really big lows and all that sort of stuff. So somehow in the middle, if you can figure out a way to just kind of stay peaceful inside, that, you know, you always sleep well at night, and that you figure out a way to make time and prioritize when you need to, then I think those are really important ingredients to being successful.
And figuring out what your ingredient mix is for you, because everybody's different. And don't follow somebody else's matrix for how they stay grounded. Figure out your own way, because some people do only need 5 hours of sleep, and then you get the people that need 8 hours trying to do it on 5 hours, and they don't know why it's not working for them. But I read this book on time management, and it said if I only sleep 5 hours, that's not always right for you.
Exactly.
You know, finding your own way. Talk a little bit about mentorship. Do you have one? Do you have multiple? What do you think about the concept? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
So, I have mentors. I am spoiled in that arena. Holy. I've got...
Well, I'm sure it goes both ways. Because it's a relationship like anything else.
I don't know. I gotta say.
It's like the investor, business owner. It's the same thing. Mentors cannot exist without mentees or proteges or whatever you want to...
I have you know, the people on my board of directors are just unbelievable. I've got this woman, Penny Wilson.
She's the chief, right?
Yes,
I've seen
Noggins,
her.
Yeah,
Noggins. I've seen her interviewed, actually, but I haven't met her.
She's unreal. She's done it all. She's graceful. She's eloquent. She's, you know, balances bullshit. But you see her and you're like, okay, like I want to develop myself because I want to be like
you.
She
seemed really cool.
Yeah, smart.
Cucumber cool.
And, you know, she's had incredible experience. She was the chief marketing officer of Macromedia. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. And then Juniper Networks, right?
Yeah.
So she's on my board, and it's really fantastic to have, just even to have her, see her demeanor. It's really great for me. Then I have Gary Taus, he's also a director of Hootsuite. And he kind of joined Tagga as an advisor in 2008. And he's stuck by us. He's been super supportive. He's a real savant in organizational design, which is really important to building a business, to understand when you hire people, how you hire, like that's critical, and he really gets that. So he's been fantastic. We've got Greg Smith, who's been a great supporter as an investor, and just really experienced in working with seed companies. Olivier Vincent, who was the CEO of CanPages, which sold for $250 million. You know, my board, I'm so lucky in that I built this board, which I don't get to sit on anymore, but I'm fine with that. You know, that's Jean Guy's bag now. But, you know, they've been really great mentors. And then on the investment side, I've got Scott Lipsky, who built a company that sold for $6.2 billion. That was a quantive in our, you know, very similar to our space. You know, a fellow by the name of Eric Savick. So, like, I could go on. Yeah. But they've all been great mentors. They've all taught me very important things about everything from personal development to business decision making. And you know, I hope to mentor. I do formally have a mentor through the FWE program, though I got to say I feel like she mentors me. But you know, wherever, if I can give back and it's meaningful, excuse me, and helpful, then you know I want to do that as much as possible. So yeah, cool. So I really believe in that.
Yeah,
that's a long-winded answer to say.
Yeah, hey,
yeah,
no,
I'm all for mentors.
And with respect
mentees.
to putting all those people on your board.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I'm not surprised. It's based on the trip to London. I'm assuming that a lot of it came down to just asking. Yeah,
a lot of asking, a lot of not hearing no, a lot of chasing. So I think I chased Penny for about 1.5 years. You know, lunches, coffees, begging, you know, trying to do. I think I pulled out every trick I had. And yeah, you got to ask.
Yeah. But you didn't give up.
No.
You just
kept. Yeah.
You never heard no. You never heard no, so you kept hustling. That's what you got to do.
Exactly.
That's the name of the game. I mean, a lot of people shy away just because they didn't hear yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that is a huge, crucial misnomer. I don't want to call it a mistake, but it's like an error sometimes in judging it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people just want to know, like, how in are you? And they want to have a chance to build a relationship as well. And they may have things going on in their life and in their journey that doesn't afford them time today.
Yeah.
And suddenly that shifts in 6 months, 8 months, a year, and you don't know, right? Unless somebody emphatically says, no, fuck off, I don't want to deal with you anymore.
I've heard that.
Then I mean, I think in those scenarios, correct me if I'm wrong, you usually respectfully back away. At least for a quarter.
Yeah,
circle
like
back
a day or two. You know, no big deal. Yeah, no, it's true. There's no as a point in time, and then there's no no. And yeah, you know, when I say I don't hear no, you absolutely have to understand the difference between the two.
And sometimes people are saying no,
respectful.
Absolutely, with nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's stuff that's totally to do with them. That's on their agenda or their
You just can't. Yeah, it's never personal.
No.
And maybe it is, but
and then again, you have to find your own way to cope with that, right?
Yeah.
What's your dream for Tagga?
You know, I'm really jazzed about what we're doing. So I want to see our software in the hands of every marketer. Anyone who runs a marketing calendar, they should be using our software. We see time and time again the type of results we can deliver and the type of data we can give them to improve their decision making on things like media spend and type of content for target audience. And so I want to see every marketer using that. But you know, most importantly, it goes back to something we spoke about earlier, is my dream is for that, you know, the employees, they become extremely successful as a result of this. And you know, if that happens, then the shareholders will be well paid. You know, look, it's no secret I'll do very well as well. So yeah, that's my dream.
Right on. And then move on to culinary endeavors.
So, yeah, probably. You know.
Last question, I ask this of everybody. It's a little bit more personal. It's to project yourself personally into the future, 10 years from now, and then look back at yourself today. And what advice would you give yourself?
You know, it's weird because I have a hard time thinking about myself 3 years into the future, much less 10. Like, it's this thing I can never imagine. And I know some people are really good at seeing themselves in the future, but I'm not.
If there was a wise one living within you,
the wise
the
one,
hover, the observer of you,
well, I think
what would they say to you?
Well, I think it's sort of this never-ending kind of process of growing up and evolution, or you know, your journey. So I feel like the person 10 years from now would kind of say the same things that the person today would say to the person, you know, 10 years younger when I was 20. And that's, you know, be patient, be collaborative, I think, or, you know, just be politically savvy, and enjoy yourself, and never give up.
Enjoy yourself and never give up. Enjoy yourself is such a big one.
It is.
Sometimes we forget the celebration, we forget the joy part, we forget the letting loose part.
Joy is I think it's an underused word, and an expectation that we don't carry into the workplace, that it should be a joyful place to be. And you know, I think that's really important.
Do you think it's because people think it's like it's not serious enough if you're...
like, you know, it's almost like we have this guilt. I mean, I certainly had it when I started working, where if I was having too much fun, it was sort of like the equivalent of, you know...
Yeah, like you're messing around.
Yeah, I was messing around, even though I was doing good work.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of research and a lot of factual evidence now saying, like, that's actually a good thing.
It is. Yeah, that's how you unlock.
Absolutely.
Happy people do, I really believe,
there's
do
a book,
good things.
Harvard prof wrote The Happiness Advantage.
Yeah.
Like, and it's basically, that is the premise. When you go into the situation from that perspective of happiness, like...
And I believe that people who join startups, you know, especially at Tagga, where they've got like real skin in the game. We're not just talking options, which they also have. That no one wants to mess around. Like, you know, we're all in this together.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean we can't have fun.
We can have a ton of fun. We can drink tequila, you know, on Fridays, or sometimes any day, Thursdays, maybe Monday mornings. So I'm just joking. But, you know, we're still going to work hard, and we trust each other. We're going to do that. Yeah. So, yeah,
and there's the culture there, right? You've built a culture that says it's okay to have fun. It's okay to feel joy. We are all in this together. Really, I mean, that's what I'm getting from you, is that you guys are all in it together. And there's nothing that's more important, based on everything you've said, than making sure those people get something great out of this experience.
I think the coolest thing, and the thing I'm so proud of, is that, you know, last year, myself and 3 other women from Tagga, we got together. We'd never run a marathon before. I mean, I'd run a lot, but none of us had run a marathon. And we did the marathon in Paris together.
Wow.
And our office was just buzzing with energy when we were going through that training process. It's just incredible. And we were having so much fun doing it, and a lot of fun at work.
Have fun, never give up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next week.